Hello and welcome to another edition of As the Blade Turns. My name is Dave Leese, and this is your Russia update. The World Anti-Doping Agency has called on the Court of Arbitration for Sport to ban figure skater Kamila Valieva for 4 years for doping. This is stated in the CAS-registered WADA statement against Valieva and the Russian anti-doping agency RUSADA. WADA also expects that the results of the athlete, shown on December 25, 2021, will be cancelled. 3 arbitrators will be appointed later in the case. One of them will be proposed by WADA, the second by RUSADA together with Valieva, and the third, as chairman, will be approved by the head of the CAS Appeals Department. In February 2022, during the Beijing Olympics, it became known that Valieva passed a positive doping test for trimetazidine, and while the sample itself was taken in December at the Russian Figure Skating Championships. During this period, she also managed to perform at the European Figure Skating Championships. Now, if you understand what it means earlier that WADA expects the results of the athlete, shown on December 25th, to be canceled, she would indeed lose her title at the Russian Figure Skating Championships and the European Figure Skating Championships. At the Beijing Games, Russian figure skaters, including Valieva, won the Olympic team tournament, but the award did not take place due to the start of the investigation. At the past championships of Russia in Europe, she won individual competitions. RUSADA, in turn, reported that it would not publicly announce the verdict in this case, since Valieva is a protected person. At the time of the sample, she was just 15 years old. RUSADA postponed hearings in the case of figure skater Kamila Valieva several times and violated the November 4th deadline. This is reported in a document released by the Court of Arbitration for Sport. WADA set RUSADA a final deadline by which the agency had to make a decision, November 4th, but RUSADA has not made any decision so far. The case will now be considered by CAS. WADA demands to disqualify Valieva for 4 years and deprive her of the gold in the team tournament at the 2022 Olympics and the gold of the European Championship. Well, as usual, the bingo card of Russian figure skating glitterati have weighed in. State Duma Deputy Svetlana Zureva considers the situation around the doping case of figure skater Kamila Valieva to be absurd. Earlier, WADA referred the figure skater's case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport for a 4-year ban. We remember cases when people were either justified or suspended for a year for a maximum of big offenses, but we understand that 4 years is given for somebody very tough. There is also a heart drug, not anabolics, and something that harms the body and really affects the result. For a heart drug, a person will not jump quads. I understand if anabolics were found in her. If this disqualification happens, CAS will sign not only for bias, but for bribery and pressure on them. The very requirement says that people just want to destroy the girl. The bloodlust is on the rise. Valieva is so beautiful, and apparently it annoys them so much that there are no words, even among our athletes. The same athlete, Seryosa Shubenkov, was acquitted for about the same thing. They didn't even give him a waiver. With such a disqualification, the athlete is likely to end her career. At the same time, it is clear that in figure skating, there is an opportunity to maintain the same elegance, beauty, and athletic form. Plus, the age limit has been increased, so there is a chance to return in 4 years and prove everything to everyone. God forbid this verdict will be announced. But if I were in her place, I would have done just that. I would have returned after the suspension and demonstrated the incredible. For such a sport, it is very difficult to return after such a period. But no one will forbid Kamila to participate in the show. We will understand that this is not just a politicized decision. This is complete absurdity. CAS, in the event of such a decision, will sign its own incompetence. It's not even about losing a medal. Just for such violations, people were justified in most cases. I could expect a year or 2 from WADA. But 4, they just signed their hatred towards us, Zureva said. Bronze medalist of the 2016 World Figure Skating Championships, Anna Pogorelaya, believes that there is a game of double standards in the doping case of Kamila Valieva. Earlier, WADA referred the figure skating's case to CAS and called for a 4-year ban. From the very beginning, it was clear that this was a game of double standards, and that they apparently did not consider what, in principle, should have been canceled. Because the samples were opened not according to the rules, not according to the standards. After all, nonsense on nonsense, in fact. Here it was necessary to build on the samples taken at the Olympics. In Beijing, they were clean. If they did not adhere to the norm, then something could go wrong. Something could have hit. How do we know that they were doing for a month with her samples? And for the Olympic Games, the samples are clean. They found something to cling to, but for their part, they do not see their own wrong. In any case, of course, it was their mistake in the first place, said Pogorilaya Nevskaya. She may be a bronze medalist from the World Championships, but she is a gold medalist in Russian gaslighting. Valieva's positive doping test became known in February at the Beijing Olympics, but the sample itself was taken in December. It was reported that the delay was due to a COVID outbreak in a laboratory in Stockholm that was analyzing the sample. It should also be known that the sample was not marked for priority review. Well, honored coach of the USSR, Tatiana Anatolyevna Tarasova, spoke about WADA's demand to disqualify figure skater Kamila Valieva for 4 years and cancel her results from December 25th onward. I think this is a rare disgrace. Is it possible that she is really disqualified for such a period? I don't know. It looks like anything is possible. Just ruin a girl's life. They are guided by the fact that there was a violation. But I can't imagine that there was a violation, Tarasova said. Sambo 70 President Renat Lyshev spoke about WADA's call to disqualify Valieva for 4 years for doping. They will now try to crush us in connection with the situation in the world. Our girls need to continue to perform, train, including Valieva. We need to prove with our victories that we were and remain the best. Kamila doesn't need to pay attention to this WADA statement. Don't get on her nerves. And we all together, our entire society, need to support Valieva. Kamila has already proven that she is one of the best skaters in the world, Lyshev said. Well, the Court of Arbitration for Sport's Monday announcement that the World Anti-Doping Agency is seeking a 4-year ban on Russian Olympic figure skating Kamila Valieva does not mean the months-long doping saga is going to end anytime soon. Unless the case is expedited, which should happen, this could take a while, even though it is a pretty straightforward case, said RUSADA CEO Travis Tigert. Under normal CAS process, it could easily be the end of 2023, since it seems that the Russian strategy is to delay and avoid. If that continues at CAS, this could easily be another 9 to 18 months. Last week, Tigert proposed the 2022 Beijing Winter Olympic athletes who still have not received their medals due to excruciating Russian delays in the Valieva case finally could be celebrated with a medal ceremony at the 2024 Summer Olympics in Paris, possibly at the opening ceremony. While that is only a suggestion, the idea was met very positively by several people within the IOC who spoke on the condition of anonymity because of the subjective and uncertain nature of the matter. 9 months ago at the Beijing Games, Russia won the gold medal, the US won the silver, and Japan the bronze in team figure skating competition. The following day, those results were thrown into disarray when Valieva, the then 15-year-old star of the Russian team, was found to have tested positive for the banned substance trimetazidine the previous December, forcing the unprecedented cancellation of the event's medal ceremony. There could be a reordering of the medals if Valieva were to be disqualified by CAS, with the U.S. moving up to take the gold, followed by Japan and Canada, the fourth-place finishers in the competition. But how the CAS panel will rule is anyone's guess. It's possible under the rules that it's a 4-year sanction, but it's also possible under the rules that it's no sanction or anything in between, Tigert said. Hopefully the case will be presented in an open and transparent way to give confidence in the final outcome, especially for the fans and the teams who competed and who are waiting for their medals. Another CAS panel that was convened at the Beijing Olympics allowed Valieva to continue to compete in the women's competition at the Games, citing the fact that Valieva was a protected person, a minor in this case, under WADA rules. That CAS ruling did not address the merits of the doping case, and in fact allowed her to compete in part because of the possibility that she might not be banned at a later date. Skating under the weight of a full-blown Olympic scandal, Valieva, the then gold medal favorite, stumbled to a fourth-place finish. Well, the press service of the World Anti-Doping Agency stated that they could not comment on the case of Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva due to the fact that it had not been completed. It had become known that WADA called on the Court of Arbitration for Sport to disqualify Valieva for 4 years and annul her results. Sorry, as this is a work in progress, we can't say anything at this stage, WADA said. But commentator Dmitry Guberniev spoke about WADA's demand to disqualify figure skater Kamila Valieva for 4 years and cancel her results from December 25th, 2021 onward. WADA requirements are expected. Or did we want them to give Valieva an apartment in Lausanne? They said, Kamila, we are giving you an apartment and shares in British Petroleum. Of course they will demand suspension and deprivation of the medal. This was absolutely understandable. But since it is a CAS issue, WADA will not decide. Now there is an adversarial process. They will prove that Kamila is guilty, and we will prove that she is innocent. The question is who will win, and the court will consider it all. Therefore, we are waiting, Guberniev said. Well, producer, wife of two-time Olympic champion Evgeny Plushenko, and sports agent to the stars Yana Rudkovskaya spoke about the doping case of figure skater Kamila Valieva. The story of Kamila Valieva is strange and long. There should be a logical end. We all certainly believe in Kamila's innocence, but it can't go on like this anymore. There should be a verdict. We cannot sit and wait all the time. Not only the fate of Kamila, but also the fate of our entire team, which defended the honor of Russia at the Games in Beijing, depends on the outcome of this case. This is a very serious matter, and it is wrong to hide what is going on. Due to a lack of understanding of what is happening, people have mixed feelings, a feeling that something is being hidden from the public. I also talked with many foreigners from the world of figure skating. They say they want to know the truth, whatever it may be. If Kamila is innocent, she must be acquitted. If there is indeed any evidence, then it must be made public. I do not want the story to interfere and give another reason for the removal of our athletes from competing at international competitions. There must be justice in this matter. We must know the results of the investigation. Despite the fact that Kamila is a protected person, she is a member of the adult Russian team. She is already an adult girl and performed at the Adult Olympics, along with other adult athletes in the team of adult children. As a person who invests a lot of personal funds in the development of youth sports, figure skating, like my husband, of course, I will support our athletes no matter what happens to them. We, like the whole country, sympathize with Kamila. But risking the entire team, risking the disqualification of all athletes in future competitions is too much to pay. I think about our future athletes, for whom there is a goal, to win the European Championships, the World Championships, the Olympic Games. I want them to compete at international competitions, and if they continue to hush up the results, then both the Russian team and our federation may be under attack. There are rules. They are the same for everyone. No one should make concessions to anyone. Doping is prohibited in any sport. There is evidence of Kamila's innocence. Present it. Prove it in court. Acquit the person. Why is everyone walking on a knife edge now? We need to present evidence of innocence and close this issue. If Kamila is innocent, we must urgently acquit her so that the guys get medals. We must fight for the end for our athlete. And if there is some secret information that we don't know, then it's probably time for us to find out. I don't want thousands of girls and boys to suffer because of this case, and they were deprived of even the right to dream in the future. I have every right to talk about it. Only in our academy, there are about 10 talented and promising athletes who can get to the next Olympics. I want them to defend the honor of our motherland, and not only other countries. Since if there is a long disqualification due to a doping scandal, it will be impossible to keep them at domestic competitions. You need to face the truth, no matter how bitter it may be, say Rudkovskaya. And I, Dave Leese, editor of As the Blade Turns, has to say that Yana Rudkovskaya gave a speech worthy of an Academy Award nomination, because on one hand, she is saying that we support Kamila, and on the other hand, she is saying to throw this young girl under the bus for all of Russia and the 10 athletes of the Angels of Plushenko who could represent and defend the honor of Russia at the upcoming Olympic Games. And that, I have to say, is one of the most amazing speeches that we have heard in some time in the sport of Figurnia Katania. Well, member of the State Duma Committee on Physical Culture and Sports, Boris Pekin, said that the WADA called on the CAS for sport to disqualify Kamila Valieva for 4 years. RUSADA should take very seriously the choice of an arbitrator, whom it should propose to defend Kamila Valieva in the Court of Arbitration for Sport. It is important for us that the case of Russian figure skater be considered objectively. Moreover, we already have the experience of deciding in favor of Russian athletes who were hosted by the CAS. Let me remind you that at the time of the alleged violation by Valieva, she was 15 years old. I am sure that there will be no talk of any 4 years of disqualification as a result. And Kamila is a very talented and courageous sportsman, so she has many more victories ahead of her, Pakin said. Sports lawyer Anna Anselievich shared her opinion on how long the case of figure skater Kamila Valieva will last in the Court of Arbitration for Sport. How long the process will take is hard to say. It's unpredictable. It all depends on the materials of the case, which we do not see. But I think that many are now interested in making a decision as soon as possible. And without that, for half a year now, the fate of the Olympic medals in the team tournament at the Olympic Games of 2022 has been unclear. In any case, CAS will be based on the agreement of the parties. If they agree to an expedited trial, the CAS will go for it. Sometimes, if major competitions are ahead, they manage to make a verdict within a few days. But the standard term is several months, Ansilevich said. President of Sambo 70 Sport and Education Center, Renat Laishev, commented on WADA's demand to disqualify Valieva for 4 years and cancel her results from December 25th, 2021. This is his second statement that he gave. Perhaps he forgot that he made another statement. Nothing else could be expected from them. In impotent rage, they want to somehow pinch us, cause trouble. This is their tactic. Envy that we have such talented athletes as Valieva. They can't do anything to us. They understand that we have the most talented country with people like Valieva. We all need to support Kamila. This will be the most correct. Kamila needs to continue performing, Laishev said. We expected that they would do this. Thus, they only hardened Valieva, sticking to her at the Olympics. The stronger our athlete will be, she should become. Kamila is the best in the world. We must all support her together and wish her the same diligence, delight us with her beauty on the ice arenas. Championat quotes Laishev as saying. Well, the head of the Russian national team in synchronized swimming, Tatiana Pokrovskaya, spoke about the doping case of figure skater Kamila Valieva. Earlier, WADA referred the figure skating's case to CAS, calling for a 4-year ban. I am outraged. These are completely unfair demands. This is an echo against the Russian team in general. Such a biased attitude goes against all the rules. Russian figure skater will be ruined, and who will compete with them? I still believe that we have friends. Soon this euphoria will pass. They will understand that it is impossible to compete without Russian athletes. We honestly win our awards, Pokrovskaya said. 3-time Olympic champion, State Duma deputy Irina Rudnina shared her opinion about the doping case of Kamila Valieva. Earlier, WADA referred the figure skater's case to CAS, calling for a 4-year ban on her. Until we have reliable information, we are not in the right to give any assessment, to speak correctly or incorrectly. The WADA requirement is cruel or not cruel. Is WADA trying to put pressure on CAS? When you apply to any court, you indicate the reason why you applied. You also indicate what kind of decision you would like to have in this case. Therefore, there is no pressure. This is a logical, consistent step in this matter. There is no need to create hysterics because of this. The only thing we know so far is that some kind of drug was present. Naturally, in this case, the athlete will be disqualified. In all this situation, I only feel sorry for the girl. I do not really believe that she voluntarily or independently took some drugs. Since she is a minor, her parents and those prepare her for the competition are responsible for her. The coach, the doctor, the massage therapist, the entire coaching team. I do not believe that anyone from Valieva's entourage will be punished in the end. We have this law in place since 2016. Until we are attracted and punished a single person, said Rudnina. Well, president of the Russian Figure Skating Federation, Alexander Gorshkov, who has since deceased since the giving of this quote, said he had no doubts about the innocence of Kamila Valieva in the doping case. We cannot give any comments on this issue since the Federation is not a party to the process, but we do not doubt the innocence of Kamila Valieva, Gorshkov said. Well, lawyer Anna Ansilevich commented on the situation around the doping case of Kamila Valieva. WADA requires a standard act in accordance with all Russian anti-doping rules and the WADA anti-doping code on the basis of which these rules were developed. Kamila does have protected person status and the ability to get a reduced sanction, but such a possibility arises when the protected person proves that there was minor fault. Apparently, WADA does not consider that there is any evidence in materials of this case that there is minor fault or negligence on the part of the athlete, and therefore requires a full sanction. CAS is empowered to make such decisions. The CAS press release refers to a paragraph of the All-Russian Anti-Doping Rules, which states that if RUSADA, the disciplinary anti-doping committee, or the national appeal body does not make a decision within the time limit set by WADA, then the case can be referred to CAS, as if RUSADA had fully acquitted the athlete. Therefore, there are no legal grounds for CAS to make such decisions, despite the fact. She says that there are legal grounds for CAS to make such decisions, despite the fact that there is no RUSADA decision. So essentially, CAS is going to act as though RUSADA has acquitted the athlete. Two-time Olympic champion in ice dance, Alexander Zhulin, spoke sharply about the doping case of Kamila Valieva. "This is absolutely unfair. Kamila, who is my favorite in women's singles, found some traces of a completely incomprehensible substance, which, as far as I know, her grandfather took," said Zhulin. "It is also a clear psychological pressure. On their part, she should have been disqualified for 300 years and even sentenced to death. They are complete idiots. It's impossible to look at what happens at competitions without Russian athletes. Some kind of crap is skating. There was a runner, Gatlin, who was disqualified twice, and he became an Olympic champion. He took the hardest doping, which allowed him to develop incredible speed. He lives in a country like the United States, so everything is forgiven him," said Zhulin. Now, it is important to note that Kamila Valieva took a trace sample, or a trace sample was found in her of trimetazidine. And why a trace? If she were to take a pill by accident from her grandfather in his glass, wouldn't it be the amount of an entire pill? Did she have a sip by accident of her grandfather, who was hundreds if not thousands of miles away? Or was this drug timed? Was this drug measured? Was this drug calculated according to Valieva's height and weight? Was there perhaps a slight error, which resulted in this to be a trace amount? Did perhaps furosemide not clear the sample out? It makes you wonder. In this case, they keep focusing on the trace amount. But does the trace amount actually indicate more guilt on perhaps of the Russian team than perhaps an entire single pill, which could have been more believed that was taken by accident and then overlooked? Well, Tatiana Navka said that the World Anti-Doping Agency called on the Court of Arbitration for Sport to disqualify Valieva for 4 years. This is just an unfair tragedy. Under no circumstances should this be done. Her fate is decided by people who have nothing to do with it. Not humanly, said Navka. You know, that's interesting. So would they like the doctor to determine her fate? Would they like Terry to determine Valieva's fate? Typically, a jury of your peers doesn't have anything to do. If this were a murder trial, the jury wouldn't be the person murdered or perhaps the person who supplied you with the weapon. Great quote from Navka. High value of artistic impression, low value of technical elements. Well, the choreographer of the group of Eteri Tudbariza, Daniil Gleikenhaus, spoke about the doping case of figure skater Kamila Valieva. Earlier, WADA called on the CAS to disqualify the skater for 4 years. Listen, I always wanted to say a lot about this case, but from a legal point of view, I can't do it, Gleikenhaus said at a press conference on the Moscow Sports Cup. Sports lawyer Anna Ansilyevich said that Russia could keep the gold of the Olympic team tournament if Kamila Valieva is disqualified. Earlier, the World Anti-Doping Agency called on the Court of Arbitration for Sport to suspend the figure skater for 4 years and cancel her results at the Beijing Winter Games. Automatic cancellation of medals occurs at those competitions where a positive sample was taken. Yes, in theory, all results from the moment of this test should be canceled, with the exception of the principle of justice. There is a clause in the code unless the principle of justice requires otherwise. If Valieva proves that in her case the principle of fairness requires that the results not be annulled, then Russia will keep the medal. All factors will be taken into account. The fact that all the other samples of Kamila were clean, and the concentration of a prohibited substance, how much it could affect the results at the Olympics. The fact that the Stockholm laboratory published the results of Valieva's doping tests 1.5 months after the sample was taken will also be taken into account. This is a lengthy period. Results must be reported 10 days after the sample has been received by the laboratory. The Stockholm laboratory and RUSADA explained that many reasons overlapped. Another wave of coronavirus in Europe, problems with transportation during the Christmas period, busy laboratories before the Olympics, because many countries intensively tested their athletes before the Games. This article neglects to mention that RUSADA did not indicate that it was a priority sample for the Olympics. Nevertheless, this can also be interpreted as a violation of the principle of justice. All the more so its wording is vague. I think that this will be announced by the defense side. The cancellation of the results in relation to the rest of the members of the Russian team will be unfair. If the leadership of the federation and the ROC had learned about the positive test in time, they would have replaced Kamila with another athlete. Since we have such competition in women's singles, that it would be easy enough to find an equivalent replacement, Ansilevich said. Chairman of the State Duma Committee on Physical Culture and Sports, Dmitry Svyshev, spoke about the doping case of Kamila Valieva. Disqualification for 4 years and the annulment of results at the Beijing Olympics is the most severe punishment. It is not clear what WADA is guided by. They can demand whatever they want, but there will still a regulation according to which certain instances must be passed. Let me also remind you that Kamila fell under protection for underage athletes. We hope that the lawyer and the Russian Figure Skating Federation will find strong arguments in order to protect Valieva from the unfounded attacks of WADA. I don't see any evidence base. They just formally approached the issue, looked at the maximum sentence that could be in this case, and filed charges. I hope we can defend the innocence of our athlete. Now, none of ours is performing on the world stage, but Kamila is very young. She is the most talented athlete of our time. With her desire, motivation, and fortitude, I think that she has a very large potential for further performances. She'll be able to please coaches, fans, and relatives with her results for many more years. Again, if she has the fortitude to continue after this difficult stage. In any case, it's impossible to give up now because we all hope for a positive outcome, Svyshev said. Honored coach of the USSR, Tatiana Anatolievna Tarasova, spoke about the doping case of figure skater Kamila Valieva after it became known that WADA referred Valieva's case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport. The athlete is pure. What can be taken from it? You can transfer the case anywhere, but the person will be clean everywhere. SE quotes Tarasova. They need to do it. That's all. I am not aware of all of the nuances, but Valieva is clean. It cannot be otherwise. The situation worries her, although everyone understands that Kamila is not to blame. Sport 24 quotes Tarasova. Well, deputies of the State Duma of the Russian Federation, Roman Terushkov and Eduard Isakov, introduced a bill to cancel the recognition of CAS sports arbitration by Russian federations. They just so happened to do this immediately prior to the November 4th deadline. Did they not submit a result on purpose of their own findings by RUSADA? Is this perhaps another strategy by the Russian Federation to delay? The bill contains a proposal to recognize Article 36.4 of the Federal Law on Physical Culture and Sports in the Russian Federation as invalid. This article says that all Russian sports federations and professional sports leagues have the right to recognize foreign arbitration and apply its sanctions to athletes who do not comply with court decisions. The project is designed to eliminate the primacy of international arbitration courts and their decisions over the decisions of the courts of the judicial system of the Russian Federation in the field of physical culture and sports. The problem of interaction with international global organizations in connection with the ongoing special military operation is a problem of a geopolitical nature. More broadly, the problem of Russia's sovereignty. Over the past 8 years, the main international sports institutions have consistently implemented a policy to eliminate Russia as a sports power, Russian athletes from the World Olympic movement and world sports. The main international arbitration institution in the field of sports is the International Court of Arbitration for Sport, known as CAS, an instance established and funded by the IOC, as well as international organizations. The Russian Olympic Committee and the majority of all Russian sports federations recognize CAS decisions as final. Thus, After the relevant CAS decisions, in recent years, the Olympic teams of the country and athletes from Russia have been deprived of the right to perform under the flag and the emblem of Russia and use its anthem, the explanatory note to the bill says. So it's very interesting. It's being proposed that Russia not even recognize the decision of CAS, meaning that Valieva would be cleared. If Valieva is cleared, would anyone in her entourage even have to be investigated? It is something to think about, because if Valieva is off the hook, is Tudoriza then off the hook? Is perhaps Dr. Shvetsky off the hook, and everyone up the chain after that? Well, Dmitry Svishev, head of the State Duma Committee on Physical Culture and Sports, commented the idea of non-recognition of CAS sports arbitration in Russia. Earlier, the corresponding bill was submitted to the State Duma by Deputy Roman Terushkov and Senator Eduard Isakov. I understand the dissatisfaction of Terushkov and Isakov with certain actions of CAS, but I do not share their opinion for the reason that today CAS is the only sports arbitration court recognized, among other things, by the Russian Federation. We are obliged to comply with all the decisions that this body makes. Unfortunately, they are often unfair, politicized, but there is no other mechanism today. And in order not to drive yourself into isolation from the world sports community, you must obey. The sports community is not unipolar. Sport is not only Western Europe and America. Sport is a global community. Now, many do not want to see us, but this is a temporary whim under the influence of some political movements, political pressure. But many sports simply cannot be imagined without the participation of Russia. For example, figure skating, synchronized swimming, gymnastics. You can list for a long time, but we can't drive ourselves into self-isolation right now. Our athletes demand from us that we provide them with worthy rivals, international competitions, and this is a fair demand, said Svishev. State Duma Deputy Roman Terushkov, who was previously against Ice Age for the prevalence of gays on the program, explained the decision to introduce a bill to abolish the recognition of CAS sports arbitration in Russia. What prompted the introduction of such a law? There can be no priority of international law to the detriment of Russian law. The laws of the Russian Federation are an absolute priority, and even more so now after the adoption of amendments to the Constitution of our country, approved by the all-Russian vote. On the basis of Article 79, the supremacy of our right is non-negotiable. We will not wait for repetitions of outrageous suspensions, as in the case of our gymnast Ivan Kulyak. Ethnic suspensions are criminal and violate the Olympic Charter and all codes of international organizations. Russia will participate only with its national symbols, and we ourselves are allowed to decide the fate of our athletes inside the country. It is time to stop all payments for participation in international federations that violate the rights and freedoms of sovereign states and their athletes. The dues for the mythical state doping programs that our country was accused of after the annexation of Crimea in 2014 should be forgotten like a nightmare. The money that the International Athletics Federation lured from the All-Russian Federation through deceit, promising restoration of rights, could go to the implementation of the youth sports program. But alas, our enemies got rich, said Terushkov. Olympic champion in short track, speed skating in Beijing 2022 silver medalist in speed skating, Ruslan Zakharov shared his opinion on the bill to abolish the recognition of CAS sports arbitration by Russian federations. I am surprised by this offer. Having decided to withdraw from the CAS, you can potentially find yourself outside of international sports in principle. Every athlete wants to be an Olympic champion. I also want to be an Olympic champion again, even if we are forced to compete again under the flag of the Russian Olympic Committee. Such initiatives will destroy the dreams of many athletes, Zakharov said. Three-time Olympic champion in figure skating, State Duma Deputy Irina Rudnina commented on the legislative initiative on non-recognition in Russia of the decisions of the Court of Arbitration for Sport. Earlier, the corresponding bill was submitted to the State Duma by Deputy Roman Terushkov and Senator Eduard Isakov. Non-recognition of CAS in Russia is a completely inadequate idea. I don't even want to talk about it. Submitting a bill does not mean considering it. So far, this is only a paper submitted by activists. Let's see what happens next, Rodnina said. Well, the International Skating Union spoke about the doping case of Russian figure skater Kamila Valieva. Earlier, the World Anti-Doping Agency referred Valieva's case to the Court of Arbitration for Sport and called for the figure skater to be disqualified for 4 years. The ISU has taken note of WADA's appeal to CAS and continues to closely monitor the outcome process for this case. The union will take action in due course, the ISU said. Thank you for telling us absolutely nothing. Last week, journalist Gabby Paluch, who has been covering Dr. Shvetsky and the Team Tuberidze doping scandal for the last year, released a Twitter thread and an article in the New York Times about Dr. Shvetsky, the Russian team doctor. Gabby Paluch pointed out how unusual it is for a team doctor in figure skating to have a specialty of anesthesiology, when in the United States or Canada, a similar doctor would perhaps have a specialty of sports medicine or orthopedics. Not only is Dr. Shvetsky an anesthesiologist, he has a subspecialty in the field of reanimology. Reanimology is about bringing dead living beings back to life, such as frogs that used to be put with electrodes. This is one of the most bizarre things that has taken place in the Kamila Valieva doping scandal. I'll be reading from Gabby Paluch's Twitter thread on November 10th. Spotlight on Dr. Shvetsky, the physician listed on Kamila Valieva's doping form. He said he did not administer any banned drugs, and he suspects he is the object of a conspiracy. This is not his first rodeo. Dr. Shvetsky was previously banned after being accused of doping Olympic rowers. This was in 2008. His medical research interests include WADA-banned methods of performance enhancement that easily avoid detection, IV laser blood irradiation, and xenon gas inhalation. Since he was reinstated, he started working with the Olympic reserve coach at Team Tuberidze's skaters. Russian women have had an unshakable and historic stranglehold on international figure skating podiums since this time. He is not your average sports doctor trained in orthopedics. Dr. Shvetsky's subspecialty is in reanimology, the science aimed at reversing death processes, like the fictional Dr. Frankenstein. His job is to help athletes perform their best in competition and training by addressing biological markers of fatigue. Example, when athletes exercise, lactic acid builds, causing fatigue and reduced training capacity the following day. Well, Dr. Shvetsky bragged that his female athlete had performed with blood lactate levels more dangerous than those of a patient who later died in the ICU. For an athlete to accumulate that much acid, they would have had to be suffering from some sort of life-threatening disorder. For example, metabolic disorders found among skaters of the Russian national figure skating team assessed by state-funded researchers in 2019 for their preparedness ahead of the Beijing Games. The researchers also found skaters suffered from heart arrhythmias. Before it was banned by WADA, Dr. Shvetsky recommended the use of a heart medication similar to the trimetazidine found in Valieva's urine, which can increase endurance, known as meldonium. Researchers warned to prevent long-term health consequences and musculoskeletal injuries, changes were sorely needed that were apparently never made, because later that year, 13-year-old Valieva landed her first quad, broke her leg shortly thereafter, and returned to competition after just 6 weeks recovery to a stunning Junior Grand Prix victory. Alyona Kosternaya is a remarkable world record holder and was favored to win an Olympic medal, but she broke both of her arms at age 17 and had to miss the games in Beijing. She has not competed since the fractures. Daria Usashova's Olympic dreams were dashed when she injured a hip during warm-up ice before a competition at age 15. She has yet returned to competition. Reigning Olympic champion Anna Sherbakova has had knee surgery just months after her victory and may not return to competitive ice, while Alexandra Russian Rocket Trusova can no longer perform the quads that won her the silver medal due to a back injury. Dr. Shvetsky has somehow contributed to 7 WADA and ISU rule changes. Hypoxin, one of the allowed substances on Valieva's doping forms, as well as GnRH-type drugs that delay the onset of puberty, have been added to WADA's monitoring list. If you are not following Gabby Paluch, and I recommend following Gabby Paluch, I will be reading some of her other tweets. The CEO of USADA, Travis Tigert, points out that when a minor or a protected person is involved in a doping case, the chaperones and coaching staff should be held even more responsible. Those who provided drugs to athletes or encouraged the use of them should be held accountable, said USADA CEO Travis Tigert in a statement from the U.S. Anti-Doping Organization. Now, I wanted to revisit Paluch's thread from March 2nd on Twitter. Alexander Kogan, Deputy General of Russian Figure Skating Federation, sits on a committee at the Institute of Physical Culture and Sports, which has been conducting scientific research that helped shape Eteri Tuberidz's training practices at RUSADA for the last decade. In 2020, genetic research was conducted to develop a hereditary specified model of the ideal figure skater and identified individual polymorphic alleles associated with athletic abilities. Kogan himself authored the dissertation describing the ideal height, weight, hip, and chest circumferences for 7-year-old figure skaters to be recruited into high-performance training camps. Special experimental training groups in Moscow, including Hrustalny, gathered data on training loads and developed a pre-season training cycle for junior and novice skaters to contribute to this bank of research. A 2012 paper about sexual dysmorphism in elite sports named reduced strength to weight ratio and reduced tolerance for exercise as disadvantages for women, but said it was advantageous that they were more susceptible to psychophysiological control. Lupron, a hormone blocker, is not banned for women by WADA and can help mitigate those disadvantages. For me, girls are better, famously said Eteri Tuberidze. Skaters, like the 184 students in Tuberidze's high-performance group at Hrustalny who train all day, show such good training results that the federal minimum standards for fitness for young figure skaters had to be raised. The Institute published a manual in 2021 emphasizing the importance of a pharmacological approach to athlete recovery through 1. Accelerators of metabolic processes, 2. Nutrition supplements, 3. Accelerators of regenerative processes, and 4. Drugs that improve exercise tolerance. Athletes are given individual preparations by the team doctor in accordance with WADA code from the pharmacy at the Institute for Physical Culture and Sports, according to the manual. The sanctioned RUSADA lab is located in the same building. 2014 Olympic gold medalist Adelina Sotnikova was cleared of doping charges in 2017, even though the bottle containing her urine sample had scratches indicative of tampering, because Rodchenkov testified she was not part of the steroidal cocktail program. But Rodchenkov wasn't in charge of the figure skating team's preparation. Dr. Shvetsky was suspended for giving the national rowing team banned blood transfusions in 2007. By 2014, he was working with the national figure skating team. He is not a sports doctor. His dissertation was on intravenous laser treatments that improve tissue recovery in necrotic wounds. He owns a medical company devoted to importing xenon gas, which can improve cellular respiration and have positive psychological impacts, improving alertness and reflexes when inhaled, which may help combat dead spots of dizziness figure skaters experience during long programs, which negatively impact performance and consistency in competition, which is identified as a problem by the Institute. Xenon can also help improve the supply of ATP to muscles. In 2019 interview, Tuberidze told Vladimir Posner that after meldonium was banned by WADA, they had to adjust the optimized cocktail they were taking and needed to find an alternative to help athletes recover. After Ekaterina Bobrova was banned in 2016 for using meldonium, Shvetsky sued a newspaper for reporting accurately that he was the team doctor in charge of her treatment. But Shvetsky is very proud of the work he has done with Kamila Valieva and sees her as his masterpiece. The cocktail for which Valieva tested positive, trimetazidine, L-carnitine, and hypoxin, is aimed at achieving an effect similar to meldonium, a Shvetsky workaround. If you have read Rodchenkov's book or The Russian Affair, you'll know that in Russian doping, they do not prefer to take any pills or tablets. they prefer liquids and gases, which are easier to evade WADA and their testing methods. So it makes you wonder about Shvetsky's xenon gas and also about how perhaps trimetazidine got into a water glass. Let's say that trimetazidine was in Grandpa Valieva's water glass. But was it a pill version of trimetazidine? Did a pill fall into a glass of water? Or was it a liquid that was put in a glass of water to be ingested on purpose? It makes you wonder just how skilled Dr. Shvetsky truly is in the field of reanimology. Eteri Tuberidze reportedly split from Dr. Shvetsky and claims that he doesn't take good care of the athletes. It's food for thought, as he's still on the Russian national figure skating team. But if Dr. Shvetsky was the doctor responsible for Valieva, and he was the doctor responsible for rowers being banned, why is he still working in Russian sports? Are these considered grievous errors, or just trace outliers? Are these just, accidents that occur in this line of business? It makes you wonder. Stay tuned. We'll be covering this story.